This has been a most requested video, and I'm really privileged that I get to share some of this extremely important wisdom with you today. Many of the words that I'm going to share are not my own. There's a multitude of powerful words that have been strung together so perfectly by gentle parenting experts and educators. So I compiled this presentation that covers all of the important concepts of my parenting style. So using my own words and thoughts and also supplementing with words from some of these great authors. I will leave credit below for some of these authors and links to their books. So what is gentle, respectful, or intuitive parenting? It is about guiding instead of controlling, connecting instead of punishing, and encouraging instead of demanding. It is about listening, understanding, responding, and communicating. And my aim for this video is to give you some inspiration and understanding on how to develop a kinder and more peaceful, instinctive approach to growing our most natural, precious resources, our children. Many people believe that gentle parenting is a form of unparenting, but nothing could be further from the truth. Gentle parenting is involved parenting. It's interactive, engaged, and active parenting. And it actually takes more focused attention, planning, participation, research, and so much more to be an empathetic, responsive parent who is in tune with their child's needs and who's prepared to make whatever sacrifices are necessary to meet those needs. And there are two extreme approaches to discipline that do not serve a toddler's needs at all. One is overly strict, punitive, and non-empathetic. It involves maintaining control of the household through punitive discipline and other manipulative tactics. And the child is perceived as innately bad and out of control, needing to be taught how to behave through fear and shame. And respect is demanded from children using this parenting method, rather than being something children can be trusted to return to us when they have been treated respectfully from the time they are born. On the other end of the spectrum are parents who are hesitant to engage in conflict and will do almost anything to avoid their child's disagreement. These parents hope boundaries will be accepted by their toddler, so they set limits really timidly, softly, and perhaps with a wavering tone that kind of asks, "Is this going to be okay with you?" Passive parents often give too many choices, and they overanalyze or respond ambiguously when children need a definitive, honest intervention. And in the extreme, when a child hits a peer, her parent might ask her, "Was that a good choice?" But no matter how caring these parents are, the child's testing will continue, and it has to because the child is still not getting the help that they need. There's a quote by Magda Gerber that says, "There is no way that overindulged children are going to be happy because they seldom get direct, honest responses from their parents. When you say no, really mean it, and let your face and posture reflect no as well." These children might seem adrift and uncomfortable much of the time, and there may be a lot of demanding, crying, and whining rather than healthy coping and resilience, which can send even the kindest, gentlest, most loving parents over the edge. How could our child keep pushing us when we're so loving, kind, and respectful? But the child's behavior is not in spite of the parents' efforts to please or their gentle, peaceful attitude. It is because of it. In any home, like in any civilized society, boundaries are necessary for everyone's safety and comfort. It is in the choosing and maintaining of those boundaries, though, that gentle parenting distinguishes itself. In a gently parented home, boundaries are focused on guiding rather than controlling children and are maintained through empathetic and creative resolutions rather than harsh punitive consequences. And the goal of obedience and compliance is a completely inferior goal. Why? Because God created mankind to be free. There were zero constraints in the garden, and God's intended version of your life is absolute freedom, free will. If there was no tree in the garden, Adam and Eve would have been trapped in the paradise prison. Without the option to make a poor choice, they wouldn't have been free. They wouldn't have been truly free. And without the freedom to reject something, we are powerless to choose the right thing. And God did not want to control us. But for some reason, we impart full control over our children from infancy, and we tell them we are in control, not them. Feeling out of control of your very self is a powerless feeling for both children and adults. And how do we control our children this way? Mainly through fear and manipulation, although we would like to call it by another nicer name. But fear is the absolute opposite of love. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear because fear has to do with punishment. There is no fear of punishment in love. The false belief that you not only can, but are responsible to control your children contributes to elevating the inferior priority of obedience and compliance in the home. The danger is that it not only leads to disrespectful interactions, but it also blinds you to what is really going on inside of your child, especially if your child is compliant. And as long as the child is doing what you say, your relationship seems fine and you think you're doing a good job, but the moment their obedience is threatened, the relationship is threatened. And the problem is that there's no real connection between your hearts and no mutual value for how your behavior affects one another. So you can get compliance all day long in front of your face, but the second your children are out of your presence, they're no longer controlled by your core values. So when their goal is to avoid punishment, then they have no goal of protecting your heart. And when they're away from you, the punisher is gone, and they are going to do whatever they're wanting to do. And a good analogy of this is when we're on the highway and we see a cop car, everyone slows down and tries to avoid punishment. Because when the law dictates compliance, you need the presence of a punisher to protect those laws. But when we do not use fear and dictatorship over our children and instead guide and nurture their hearts in freedom, the child's decisions are then guided by truth and love, and they will carry those decision-making skills with them, no matter how far out of your presence that they are, because they are not choosing the right thing out of fear of punishment. They're choosing because of their deep core values that you have instilled in them by you not using fear tactics to get your points across. And the concept of using consequences, physical or otherwise, as a deterrent for hitting is based on the misconception that small children have the capacity for forethought, and that they're choosing to disobey. The fact, though, is that the prefrontal cortex, where reasoning, logic, and forethought take place, is highly immature in toddlers and preschoolers, and actually doesn't develop fully until the mid-20s. Small children act instinctively and impulsively, even when not stressed, simply because that is what they are developmentally capable of. And when they are stressed, even in the smallest amount, even the little bit of self-control that they may have attained flies right out the window, and before they know it, they have reacted physically to their stress. And punishing them for that is absolutely absurd. There is an incredible book called The Whole Brain Child, and I highly recommend every parent read it. I will link it below. So, do you want to know a dirty little secret about punishment? It doesn't work. Punishment doesn't work. It may be able to control a child's behavior temporarily while they are small or while they're in their parents' presence, but it cannot control the person. As with all humans, outward behavior is merely a reflection of our inner selves, our needs, our hurts, and our emotional state. While the temporary payoff of punishment may be compliance, the need behind the behavior is never addressed, and those needs merely get driven underground and often emerge later in more potentially damaging behaviors such as lying, sneaking, anger, outright rebellion, depression, aggression, etc. And punishing them, yelling at them, sending them to their room, or putting them in timeout completely disconnects them even further from their source of security, and not only delays a resolution of the issue, but misses an opportunity to equip them with the tools that they need to handle future problems. I know that this video will need a follow-up video on how to practically walk this out. I know this was a lot of information, but I will definitely do more videos on how I implement this into my parenting strategy. But I really wanted to give you guys a little bit of info on my philosophy of parenting and really lay the rails to give you insight on why I believe respectful parenting is the way to go. There's a lot more to it than this, but I just tried to give you a brief summary. To sum it up, this is how you walk it out. Be kind, be gracious, be ever merciful and loving. Model every good thing that you want to see in your child, and if you model a negative trait, don't be surprised or angry if it shows up in your child. And my God, do not punish them for it, because it's not their fault. Treat them as you would want to be treated. Honestly, it's just that simple. And when you begin to do this, they will blossom, and you will see all of the good behaviors emerge on their own. Don't stifle them, don't suppress their creativity and individuality, but nurture them in their interests and talents. And I promise you this, I promise you, you will never look back and wish that you had hit or punished your child or used fear tactics and manipulation on them. You will never regret choosing love over fear.